man. There's the continuing revolution in technology, the possibility of curing diseases that have stalked us from the caveman era. There's the marvelous conquest of space, a rich frontier whose riches we've barely glimpsed. And there's the struggle between the democracies and those countries which are not democratic. All of these possibilities bring with them questions, and it's your generation that will have to answer them. That makes you all very important indeed. You have much before you, and all I can say is that you've begun brilliantly. Continue to pursue excellence, be proud of your country and its heritage, and be proud of you yourselves, as we are proud of all of you. Now, that's all I had to say in terms of prepared remarks. What I really want to do is take your questions. And I understand that Rob Miller will be asking the first question. So, Rob, step up to the microphone and we'll begin.
Mr. President, my name is Rob Miller, and I expect to attend East Carolina University next fall. Before I start, I'd like to say that I wish you could run for a third term so I can vote for you next time.
Well, thank you very much. They've kind of fixed that with the 22nd Amendment.
My question is, what do you enjoy most about being President of the United States?
Oh, there are so many things, and many things that you don't enjoy also. I think the greatest is that every once in a while, something comes to your attention. Maybe it's something you read in the paper about some unfortunate person, or you get a letter that someone managed to get through about some problem that evidently there isn't any regular program to solve. And you find that you can solve it. And I know of one case of a baby that had to have a transplant. We were able to arrange that. And then just a short time ago, I had the pleasure of seeing that little girl who'd been a baby at the time of the transplant, and she came here with her parents to the White House. But it's things like that where you find that being in this position enables you to reach out and touch and get something of that kind done. And you go home feeling 10 feet tall, very happy.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Mr. President, my name is Stacy Self, and I will be studying mechanical engineering at North Carolina State University. Many of us are planning to continue our education and go on to be doctors, lawyers, engineers. However, very few, if any of us, are planning to become teachers. Does this concern you? If so, what measures are being taken to encourage more people into entering this profession?
Well, we have been doing some things. As you know, I appointed a commission to come up with a report on excellence in education. And they brought many suggestions. And since the federal government does not control education, it's controlled at the state and local level, we then sent our missionaries out to tell the states and to provide this report to them. Some of them had to do with this very problem of teachers. And the result is that many states now are putting in merit pay for teachers, that in addition to a set of classified salary scales for teachers, the teachers who rise above the norm and do exceptionally well can be rewarded as they would be in any other business or industry with an increase in pay. We also have made quite a considerable sum available to stimulate the teaching of instructors in math and science and so forth. So we are working toward that end. And I don't know that I can't recall when we faced a shortage of teachers as is facing us in the near future. And they are all important, so we're going to continue doing everything we can to encourage going into that profession.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. President, my name is Sandra Roundtree, and I'll be attending North Carolina Central University this fall to have a major in computer science. Most of us are getting ready to start paying Social Security. Do you think we will be able to receive it when we retire?
Social Security? Yes. When we came here, I was very disturbed. I got myself in a lot of trouble because in an election year, some people sort of distorted what I was trying to say. But Social Security was in trouble. As a matter of fact, we knew when we came here that as far as we could see, Social Security by July of 1983 was going to be bankrupt, the way it was going. And when the election year of '82 was over and it was no longer a political issue, then we put together a bipartisan commission made up of representatives of the Congress, the government, and the private sector. They did a study and came back with a recommendation for a complete reform. And as far as we can see now, Social Security is on a sound financial basis as far as we can see into the next century. So yes, it will be there.
Thank you, sir. Mr. President, my name is Martha Felton, and in the spring I plan to attend Chowan College to study journalism. My question is, first of all, we've seen, all of us, the special and news reports concerning the financial status of the American farmer. And I was wondering, could you explain to us what you think the future holds for the family farmer?
Yes, for one thing, we have to get farming back into the marketplace instead of under the government regulations and subsidies and programs that we've had for the last 50-odd years. This isn't a purely American problem. At the Tokyo summit, the representatives of the 7 countries around the table, all of us recognized that governments were, in a sense, subsidizing the overproduction of food in the world. We've so used over the centuries to calling it a hungry world. But today, virtually every country that once was an importer of foodstuffs is now an exporter. So one of the things we decided after lengthy discussion was to put together an international team of experts and see how we could meet this particular problem. But I can't help but call attention to the fact that in our country, a large part of farming was never in the government farm programs. And that part of farming has not had the troubles that we see now among our farmers. And so we have to recognize that government has to bear a responsibility for part of what has happened. And we're trying to find a way out, but with compassion for those people who must not just be allowed to wither on the vine. But our main problem is that we have induced overproduction. We're producing more than there's a market for. And we've got to find an answer to that, and yet an answer that does not suddenly hurt some individuals.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
All right. Incidentally, for those that wonder whether we're doing anything, in the last few years we've been spending more on the farm program than has ever been spent in our history.
Mr. President, my name is Robert Keeter, and I'll be attending East Carolina University next year. I would like to know what you feel has been your greatest achievement as president.
I'm delighted to answer that one. There are a number of things that I've thought we did rather well and was proud of, but right now, the fact that both the Senate and the House have passed tax reform legislation for the income tax, meaning that when we can get those two together, one of their programs that they passed I don't like at all, the other one's pretty good, but both of them can be improved. This, I think, would be the greatest achievement. We have had an income tax system that was passed in 1913 and has grown to be such a monster that virtually, well, the main part of the people in our country have to hire professional help to find out how much they owe the government. And the government, the tax is such that if you make a mistake, the government then comes back and penalizes you and charges you a fine for having made a mistake. At the same time, the government has warned you not to seek advice from their own employees because their own employees don't understand the law. And therefore, you'd be penalized for their mistake. Now, as I told you, 14 brackets in the income tax, and now all the way up to 50%. When I was in motion pictures, and as you know, motion pictures do pay a little above the average scale, if you make a go of it, you'd come to a time the top bracket was 90%. Well, you'd come to a point in which you were in the 90% bracket and somebody would offer you a fine picture and you'd just love to do it. But you said, I'm not going to do that picture for 10 cents on the dollar. Well, today, this tax that the Senator bill that the Senate has passed has only two brackets, 15% and then 27%, meaning that there would always be an incentive, even if you're in the 27% bracket, because you're going to get to keep 73 cents out of every dollar you earn, no matter how many dollars those are. And it's been simplified to the place that you won't need a public accountant to tell you how much you owe. You can figure out your tax yourself. It's fair. There will be about 6 million people at the bottom of the scale who will be dropped from having to pay any income tax at all. And about 80% of the people will be in that 15% bracket. So I think the fact that we have finally gotten the Congress of the United States to deal with this problem of tax reform is the greatest achievement. And I'm going to be riding herd all the way to see that we finally get it through.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Mr. President, my name is David Rosenblatt, and I'm currently trying to gain admission into the United States Naval Academy. My hope is to graduate from the Academy and become a career officer in the United States Marine Corps. Mr. President, what do you recommend to my generation? What steps do you recommend that we take to avert the possibility of a future nuclear war?
I think that the path that we are trying to be on, and if we can persuade our Soviet counterparts to go with us, is the path, and that is to start a program of mutual reduction of nuclear weapons, leading to, as soon as possible, the total elimination of such weapons. As you know, we have the most stupid policy today. We inherited this from some years back. It's called mutual assured destruction. And because the Soviet Union had built up such a massive force, then we built up a deterrent force. What do we mean by deterrent? Well, we know we're not going to shoot the first one, but if they attack, then we must have enough so that our retaliatory blow will deliver unacceptable damage to them, and that's supposed to keep them from shooting the first missile at us. Well, doesn't it make a lot more sense, instead of living under that threat that some madman might push that button, let's get rid of those weapons. But then over and above that, what we're trying to do, let's get rid of the mistrust between the East Bloc and the West Bloc so that there's no need for any war. Someone has wisely said that nations don't distrust each other because they're armed. Nations arm themselves because they distrust each other. So if we can eliminate that, and that's what we're trying with these summit meetings and so forth. But may I wish you well in the career you've chosen and tell you that of all the things I'm proud of in this job, I'm more proud of the young men and women in uniform than I can say. I'm bursting with pride. They're doing such a great job.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
You bet.
Mr. President, my name is Laura Bond. I will be attending North Carolina A&T State University to major in industrial engineering. As high school seniors, many of us will soon be seeking employment. What do you feel is the employment status for us next year?
Employment in the United States, I have to say the prospects are good, because while we still show, say, a 7% unemployment rate, that is based on considering everyone, male and female, in the United States between the ages of 16 and 65 as the potential workforce. Today, we have the highest percentage of that sum total workforce employed ever in our history. 110 million people working, and in the last 40 months, we have created 10 million new jobs. And we're going on still at that same rate. As I said, 1.5 million just in the last year. So, yes, the employment, the prospect for you is fine. And can I just take a second and tell, when you say industrial engineering, that means the people that design the assembly lines and everything. I was once visiting a plant where they made light bulbs. And I watched these people sitting as down one line came the glass bulb and down the other came the brass fixture, and they would take them and put them together. But I noticed one elderly woman working there, and she was crossing arms and doing it. And that looked pretty complicated to me, and later on I was talking to some of the executives of the plant about that and calling attention to her. And one fellow's face began to get red. And finally, I noticed them all laughing, and I said, what is it? He was the one that had decided they should change that line. The glass used to come down this side, and the brass used to come down this side, and for some reason he thought they ought to change the two lines. But she'd been doing that for 35 years, and she wasn't about to change. She crossed. So watch out.